Good afternoon. Thank you for joining our webinar on the blend, Meat with Benefits, sponsored by the Mushroom Council. Today, mushrooms are fresh mushrooms. The Mushroom Council is composed of fresh market producers or importers who average more than 500,000 pounds of mushroom produced or imported annually. The Mushroom Program is authorized by the Mushroom Promotion, Research, and Consumer Information Act of 1990 and is administered by the Mushroom Council under the supervision of the Agricultural Marketing Service. Research and promotion programs help to expand, maintain, and develop markets for individual agricultural commodities in the United States and abroad. These industry programs are requested and funded by the industry groups that they serve. I'm Katie Knappenberger, and I will play the role of moderator today. Let's discuss a few logistics for the call. All of your phone and computer lines are muted and will remain muted for the duration of the call. If you have any questions, please submit your questions under the question tab as part of the control panel on your screen. I will moderate the questions and ask them as the conversation flows. I may answer your question by typing a response. Now, I'd like to introduce Steve Solomon. Steve is the menu strategist for the Mushroom Council. He works with a variety of chains, colleges, food service management companies to develop new concepts and menu ideas like the blend, which combines meat and mushrooms to create a healthier version of iconic foods. And with that, take it away, Steve.
Well, thank you very much, Katie. Really appreciate that. And you know what? We are so happy to be part of CPSDA. You know, it's been 3 years for us now, and you know, I think that it's just been a great relationship and a great opportunity for us. So we appreciate everything. And you know, to some extent, what you'll see today is we are going to try and give back to, you know, to some extent. So today, what we're going to talk about, you know, you've all seen us a couple times, you know, at the conference. We've talked about the blend, which I'll talk about a little bit, but we'll talk about why the blend is important to you all. And then we're going to introduce a blended recipe contest for you, and that is our way to, you know, engage and, you know, and give something back. So that's going to be today. When you talk about blended burgers, and I'll tell you where we are with, you know, it's been already a great year, 2019, for awareness around blended burgers. But Fast Company did the best overall description of what a blended burger is, and it really is about 30% mushrooms that are blended into any sort of meat block in any sort of ground form. But as they said, it soaks up, so mushrooms do soak up the flavor of, and in this case they talked about beef, but it could have been anything else. So they actually make the, you know, a patty or a taco or a meatloaf or a meatball taste more meaty, provides nutrition benefits. What they didn't talk about was functional benefits, which we will talk about, that are important to you, while being way more sustainable. So that was a pretty good description from them. You know, what is the blend? The blend is actually, again, ground meat in any sort of any sort of platform that you would use, and finely diced or chopped or ground mushrooms. And like I said, you know, what we would look at is if you were doing a burger, it'd be about 25 to 30%. If you were doing a taco, you know, and loose meat kinds of things, it would be even, you know, you could go higher. And again, whether people know about that, and I think you would always tell them what was in their food, but you wouldn't actually taste the mushrooms until you got to higher percentages. So, you know, so why did we do this, and what was the importance of that? Well, you know, I mean, we're not going to sit here and say we can solve childhood obesity, but but somebody said, you'll see that middle slide, it's really about sustainability. But if we actually blended every burger that was served away from home, we would save like 4.9 trillion calories in this country. That's how many burgers we eat, and that'd be like every adult in this country fasting for 7 days. So, so we're not going to claim anything, but there are clearly nutritional benefits. Time Magazine, as you said a little while back, picked mushrooms as the 13th healthiest food of all time. Don't ask me how they did that, but that's what they did. The middle portion is something from World Resources Institute around sustainability, and they say there's 10 billion burgers. We think the number's more like 12, but if every burger was blended, that'd be akin to everybody in San Diego never driving again. That's how many cars would be taken off the road. You'd save a ton of water. It takes anywhere from, depending on if you look at the feed, it takes anywhere from like 400 to 1,000 gallons of water to produce a pound of beef. And it takes 1.8 gallons of water to produce a pound of mushrooms. So you see that. And then, because you can grow, so just to give you a couple examples, with wine, you can grow 22,000 pounds on an acre of land. With beef, you can grow 1,000 pounds on an acre, and with mushrooms, you can grow 1 million pounds. So we could save agricultural resources in this country. So there's a big sustainability story, and then there's a big flavor story too, as you see, that Weight Watchers talked about. In fact, we just did some recent taste tests, and we did that with, it was really done in the fast food arena. So we took a regular 100% beef burger. We took a burger that was about 27% blended with mushrooms. And then we also took one of the newer cultured products, right, that are meatless but look like burgers. I won't name those, but overall, the blend outscored all the others in terms of just about every one of those major categories. In every one of those major categories, as you see there. So, but some of the interesting things that came from that very research was that, especially when you start thinking about mushrooms. Well, what we did was we took these 3 burgers and we cooked them and then showed them to, there were about 350 people that we talked with. And we asked them, which ones would you be more likely to order or eat based on just appearance? And 44% said that they would pick the blended burger. Then we actually asked them to taste it, right? And then that jumped up to 62% said they would be more likely to order the blended burger. And then we told them that there were mushrooms in there. And, there's always some issue about are mushrooms, polarizing. Sometimes you all are dealing with, especially on the college level, students that have come from food insecure, neighborhoods and households. And so, they don't know mushrooms, they don't know much about vegetables, but we actually then told people about mushrooms, that there were mushrooms in there, and that number didn't jump up at all, but the key point was that it did jump up. And then the chart to the right is interesting because what they basically said was, what would this be a better alternative to? And you'll see it's like, 60 some odd percent said beef burgers. Another group said veggie burgers, even though it's not a veggie burger at all because it has 70% meat in it. A number said turkey burgers, but then you see the last 2. And you all probably serve a lot of chicken. And, we know when we, just talking to chefs, there's a lot of chicken fatigue, but actually 46% of the people agreed that the blend, a blended burger was a great replacement for a chicken sandwich, and 43% said it was a great replacement for just a chicken dish. So we're not trying to displace chicken, but it was kind of an interesting lesson for us. Clearly, we've talked about, how the blend is not just around burgers. It could be around anything that you do with ground meat. And then, from your standpoint, the functional aspect. mushrooms, Katie did a great job of talking about the mushroom industry overall, but mushrooms as a product are clearly, I mean, a lot of people talk about them in their own kingdom, right? Just because they really aren't a vegetable, but, we're tied to the vegetable world, and that's a good thing. But we are biologically distinct, nutritionally unique, and I'm going to talk about the functional benefits, from a performance standpoint. And again, they fit right into the way consumers are now trying to, change their eating habits. So this is, and I see that slide didn't, at least on my screen, it didn't quite work, but, the bottom line is mushrooms are filled with antioxidants. They reduce oxidative stress, anti-inflammatories, so you don't get sick on game day. They improve the immune function. They have all the B vitamins for energy, and they're antiviral. So you kind of take a look at that chart, and the chart's probably, a little bit flipped from the standpoint. You see what, plants provide, all kinds of great stuff. Animals provide, iron, selenium, and other minerals. When you put beef and mushrooms together, you get all the best of that. So you get all those things, but, as I said, you get all the B vitamins. It's the only produce item with naturally occurring vitamin D. It's one of the only items in the grocery store that has naturally occurring vitamin D. You get, fiber. You get as much potassium as a medium banana, selenium, ergothioneine, glutathione, and all kinds of things that give you those antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. So we fit, it's great. We fit the plant forward way of looking at things, and then plant-based too. Mushrooms have always been the meat and meatless, even though, with the need for protein, mushrooms do have protein, but the bioavailability of their protein is a little bit different than the protein that you would get from meat and maybe some of the plant proteins like beans and pulses and things like that. So what's been happening, I said that, it's been a great year already for mushrooms. And the reason why is we've been on trends lists. It's been really pretty amazing, I'd have to say. So the New York Times named us the It Vegetable. I would say, and we put that in there so you could see that we were tied with seaweed and sea vegetables, but they called us the new It Vegetable, and they talked about the health halo that, that's happening, and the fact that, you do see mushrooms popping up in almost all kinds of foods. This is probably the most important thing for us because it wasn't a pundit. Now, I'll show you how many of those the various trend analysts said that, mushrooms were the kind of the It Vegetable, but Pinterest actually called us the vegetable or the food of the year, the #1 food trend of the year, and they did it based on crowdsourcing. So they looked at all across everything that was going on at Pinterest, and they looked at the number of pins and the number of mushroom recipe searches, and they figured they looked at it and said mushrooms are #1 because of blended burgers as well as because of mushrooms and everything. You see NBC, you see Washington Post. And I will say, if you look at the Washington Post article, it says coming to grocery shelves in 2019. In fact, we're about a week away from Applegate, which is part of Hormel, but Applegate, the organic company, introducing a blended burger at retail that'll be all organic, and it'll actually be called the blended burger. Bush's Beans has just launched as of yesterday. And I don't know when we'll see it in the retail stores, but they've launched it in the food service arena, a burger that is 60% beef, 20% mushrooms, and 20% beans. You see some other articles. We thought this was kind of fun just because, I don't know if they keep reading each other's headlines, but you can see the Wall Street Journal was basically saying the mushrooms are having a moment, and then Time Magazine said mushrooms get their moment. So I don't know if it's the same writer or not, or whatever. But we thought that was kind of fun. But as I said, the food trend of the year, Forbes, Washington Post. I won't go through it all. You can see that. All on the next side, even people like Kroger and Campbell Soup talked about mushrooms. Better Homes and Gardens said that this was the year of the mushrooms. So, as I said, 2019 has been really, really good. And a lot of that's been about the blend. Some of it's been about functionality, and that's what I wanted to tell you. So, Outside Magazine talked about one of the biggest fitness trends of 2019 is about, what is mushrooms. And then even, Liz Strong, whether you're a proponent or not of that, they took a look at that and said, that the blended burger is really becoming a thing. So who's adopted the blend? This is just a short list of people who have, and almost everybody on this list, it's about Michigan State are, rolling out right now, but in most of these colleges, this is the only burger that they would serve on campus. That's true at Ohio State. That's true at Cornell. UCLA, for example. If there's anybody on here, they just, they have a whole series of different burgers, and one of them is the blend. Colorado, the only burger at Princeton, all the rest of that. So, and Sodexo, which is up there. There may be some of you who are in Sodexo schools. Sodexo started out in K through 12, which was kind of interesting. That their 250 districts only serve blended burgers when they serve burgers, and now Sodexo is rolling out to basically every college that they serve, and every healthcare that's even on patient menus, and every business dining. So if you're part of that, they've developed a new sort of circuit training menu for the sports performance and the training tables, and they include blended burgers on that. From a chain standpoint, so you're seeing way more of that out there right now. Seasons 52, which is up in the, I think if I do that, yeah, there you go. Hilton's looking at it. California Pizza Kitchen just introduced a bolognese sauce. There's all kinds of people. Pizza Hut has it in a meatball. You might not be able to find it because you can't find any ingredients on Pizza Hut's website, but if you look, you'll see that they actually blend their meatball to keep the sodium down. The Counter, if you're out in the West, and then Fleming Steakhouse, and that's really just a few of the people. The biggest one was Sonic, and maybe you all heard about that. Sonic introduced their blended burger, and they did it because of calories on the menu. So it turned out to be the lowest, the lowest calorie item that they had. They introduced it about a year ago, and they're already into their third LTO around it, just introducing chili along with what they call their slinger, which is made with mushrooms, 100% beef, and seasonings. And see what they say about Sonic, and how some people think that that's really disrupting all of the burger category. And that's really about, a really big, a good summary from, for what's going on with the blend. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rob Skinner, who you all know Rob really well, senior sports dietitian, I believe board member of CPSDA, big proponent, but we've had the opportunity to work with Rob. Rob has, we used Rob to actually work with us to, originally talk about, what were the opportunities before we decided to become, to look at this. And so he's really helped us with the functional standpoint of that, but a good friend and a proponent of the blend, Rob Skinner.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Most of you know me, but right now I'm at the United States Olympic Committee working with combat and acrobat sports, and one of the big factors for combat sports is weight control, and we have to be a certain weight to compete in weight classes. So we use the blend here in our dining hall. Stephanie Meisen, our dining services dietitian, and our food service director, Terry Mormon, had really kind of turned me on to the blend. And they use it with some beef tacos and burgers and even some Thai beef blend type stuff. All of the acceptability has been great, but for me, the functionality is that it's lowering the fat in the product, especially the saturated fat. It's lowering the sodium in the product, which I've got to watch sodium depending on where they are in their weight control to competition, and it's giving them a good wholesome product, a good wholesome food. Not to mention the vitamin D. We did a class in our teaching kitchen on vitamin D, and so we did mushroom risotto, and we did the blend in meatballs and burgers, and we did some other vitamin D rich foods. But showing the athletes that they can do it on their own, not just in the fact that they're coming to market with these products, is phenomenal, because it is a process to do it yourself. It's a good process. It's not hard, but teaching the athletes how to do the process so that they can do it on a consistent basis at home is as good as serving it to them already made. But if they can buy the blend in their supermarket, then it's going to make it much easier for me, especially when we get closer to weight control to competition issues. The sodium factor is a big thing for us when it gets close, and a lot of them increase their protein. But if they can increase their protein with a blended type product, then we tend to see them maintain weight a little bit better. Almost nobody who says they don't like mushrooms, anyone who says they don't like mushrooms, almost cannot tell that the blend is a mushroom, has mushrooms in it. So we don't worry about that. We do keep track of everyone with allergies. I know everyone out there with the food service bent, we're all concerned about that. We don't advertise like our Thai beef tacos. We don't necessarily advertise that it's a blended product, but we know everyone that eats there and what their allergies are, so we can steer people away from it if they do have some obscure allergy to mushrooms or something, or glucans or whatever. So for us, it's just an easy way. Incorporating mushrooms is an easy way to get vitamin D, lower the fat and the calories and the sodium in products that these athletes are going to eat anyway. They're going to eat burgers. They're going to eat meatballs. So this is an easy way for us to do it, and we love it. I mean, it's really not that hard of a transition. And I know I harp on it, but the acceptability. I am not one to change a recipe or a food item if it reduces acceptability of that item. And this does not seem to reduce acceptability. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot to say. We believe in mushrooms. We use them in almost every country we go to. I'll pick up mushrooms at the grocery store, and we'll put them in omelets. We'll put them in spaghetti sauces. We'll put them in foods. And when we travel with small teams and we're cooking in hotel rooms and things like that. So mushrooms are a staple part of our athletic meal plan.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Rob. And you know what? Just to tailgate on some of that, what Rob said. I didn't talk about nutrition. I mean, I talked about some nutrition, but I didn't talk about some of the things that Rob just talked about. You know, I mean, as you, and that's what we're going to talk about is the recipe contest. As you start to think about this, and you know, it's like it's whether you do it, whether your chefs do it. You know, on your behalf, you work together with your chefs, even if you work together with some of the athletes, right? Everybody knows how to build a burger. That's great. What I would tell you is it turns out that mushrooms is, I mentioned before, it's a flavor carrier, but what that means also is you end up, almost everybody who makes it then and salts their burger a certain way. If you've made a burger, you salt it a certain way. You make a blended burger, and almost 100% of the people that have done it will find out that it's too salty. You know, that it's, you know, it'll ultimately be higher in sodium because you need less for that. It turns out when you put 30% or 20, let's say 30% mushrooms, you basically, yes, you're saving somewhere around 25% of the calories. you know, if weight loss and a really approachable platform, right? Something, you know, an iconic food that every athlete wants to eat, which is a burger. But you've actually made it, you know, even though it tastes great, it's less calorie, it's clearly less fat, you know, like 30 or 40% fat, less cholesterol, and then of course about 30%, and turns out to be about 25 to 30% less sodium. So all good on that front. So yeah, so we're having, you know, so we want you all to join and you know, try the blend for yourself. And so we're sponsoring CPSDA recipe contest. Basically, pretty simple rules. The blended burger is just basically mushrooms and meat. It doesn't mean that you can't put anything else in there. If you wanted to put, you know, some pulses, you know, that, or, you know, like I said, Bush's is doing some beans in there. They had to back off the beans because of the texture, because didn't taste like a burger. But now at about 20%, they're, you know, they have a great product. So, you know, other vegetables in there, fine. You know, I mean, if you look at burgers, they're great platforms. And we're not just saying a burger. It could be a meatloaf. It could be a taco. It could be anything that you do with ground meat. But the recipe has to have at least 25% cultivated mushrooms. And you would probably use cultivated mushrooms anyway. We always talk about white button. You know, you can read some things that say shiitakes have more vitamin D, you know, but the bottom line is everything that I've said about mushrooms is true, whether it's white buttons, creminis, portobellas, shiitake, but you know, and again, some people, if you were in a fine dining place, would use trumpets and oysters, but they all actually do the exact same thing. So you'll email the recipe to Amy Friel. Contest starts now. And what we're going to do is we're going to serve up the recipe at the conference, give you all some props. The winner will get a scholarship to attend the conference, and will receive $1,000. And then we'll also take the two runners up and give them a complimentary registration to the annual conference itself. So we'd love for you all to engage with us, take a look at it, see for yourself what, you know, and even test it out with your own athletes if you're not already doing it, and see what they say. Because like I said, you know, if you're just talking about a taco or a burger, you know, nobody can really tell the difference whether you tell them that or not. So I think that's really about it, except for any questions and any comments from Katie.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Steve. That was awesome. I do have a couple of questions that have come in. The first one is about grocery stores in the Midwest that might sell the blend. Do you have any advice for finding it in grocery stores?
Yeah, well, you know, and I know Rob talked about, you know, I mean, it's hard to get people to cook. It is easy enough to do, but I don't know that anything, you know, I mean, athletes are so busy with their lives and whatever else, you know, sometimes cooking does take a back seat, even though I know that everybody who's a dietitian and nutritionist wants them to learn how to cook at home. So to some extent, it's really easy to just take mushrooms. I would actually just take mushrooms, roast them, cut them up, put them in with my burger, and then put them on a grill, right? So pretty easy to do. But that said, there are also some products out there. One is called Let's Blend, that is in the produce section, that is actually mushrooms already cut up. And there are 2 or 3 of those. Where they are, I can't tell you. I know that they're at HEB in Texas. That's not actually Midwest, but they're in other places. And there, you just take them and you just take them out of the bag, you know, out of the pouch, and put them in with ground beef and, you know, and cook those up. Some places in the prepared food sections in the Midwest. So I'll think about Heinen's grocery store in the Cleveland, and then they have some things in, you know, some stores in Chicago. They do blended burgers in their prepared food section. You still have to take them home and cook them. So you've got that. where, in fact, when I talked about retail, so Applegate will be March 15th will be the time that you'll start to see them in grocery store shelves, and that'll be across the country. They will be, I will tell you, they'll be pretty pricey because everything is, with Applegate, it's grass-fed and grass-fed beef and organic mushrooms and humane certification, and Whole30 certification, and all kinds of other, check the boxes off. But they have a great relationship with Whole Foods. I think they're already in some Kroger divisions, which would be in the Midwest, are already sold into that, might not be on the shelves. There's another company called Teton Waters that's more mountain states, and they're closely tied with Costco. So Costco will probably be having some of these. And then I'm not quite sure when the Bush's product will be to market. So that's a long answer to that question.
Great.
Well, Steve, I will say too that it is a great activity to show athletes how to cook the mushrooms as well as blend them in the food processor. Not make them too mushy, but make them the consistency of ground beef so that it actually does literally blend well with the ground beef. Too chunky and they see the mushrooms, they don't like it. Too much blending, it's kind of mushy and watery. So just a couple of pulses on the food processor gets it to the consistency that you need. But it's a fun teaching kitchen session.
Awesome. This question is for Steve and Rob. We have some people who have seen mushroom coffees and mushroom teas. They're kind of trendy right now. What do you guys think that sports dietitians need to know about the mushroom teas and coffees and using these with their athletes?
Okay, I guess I'll start, Rob. So mushroom teas and coffees have been really great from the standpoint of a lot of exposure for mushrooms, and they are all based on the functionality. The real question, and we're about to go into a nutrition summit of our own, the real question, is, and they're not produced by us. We're just the council, right? So somebody else does that. And it's probably the biggest one is Four Sigmatic. You can look them up online, and they do everything from teas and coffees and matchas and chais and mochas and elixirs and things like that. So they make some functional, some really strong adaptogen functional claims. We are going to talk about whether they really, we can't say right now that they are based on science. Now, on the other hand, they do come from, even though they're based in California, the mushrooms come from Europe and a few other places, and there are places that can make different claims than the United States can around mushrooms. So not quite sure how to answer that. It is based on the functional properties. Anecdotally, we know that people talk about, that they wake up every morning with these mushroom coffees, and they're made with like things that we don't cultivate, right? Lion's mane and chaga and reishi mushrooms, things like that. And what they say is it has the benefits of caffeine without the downside of caffeine. But that's anecdotal, right? And, I would suggest that, if you're really interested, since we can't right now until we go through our scientific community and dietitians, we'll look at that and see what the science really is there. But you should reach out to Four Sigmatic and actually see what kind of science they have behind them, because they do make a lot of claims, and if those claims are right, then it's a really kind of cool product. They also make candies and all kinds of other things like that. So
I would say I would say the same. I think the jury's still out. It may not be harmful. I'd be concerned about it. I would be concerned about buying a mushroom tea in another country, especially if it's just the ground up mushroom, because a lot of the places I go, there's not a lot of safety issues. Ironically, well, not ironically, but interestingly, in Budapest, in their big, huge market, they actually test every mushroom, because I guess they forage a lot there, but they test every mushroom in Budapest in their market to make sure that you don't get a bad one. So I would trust them, but I don't know about, some of the markets I go to are pretty sketch. So if you're outside of the United States, I'd be concerned.
Yeah, and I would add to that. Thanks, Rob. And that's great. I would add to that this is really, and I can't remember. It's a Scandinavian country that really sort of started this, and they do cultivate their mushrooms over there. So I don't think that and there's so many people that have gotten on the bandwagon on this. I think that the real issue is going to be about what's the science behind what they're really talking about. So is it right? And and some of that is, if it makes you feel better, then do it. But those mushrooms will still have the same properties that we all talked about. I mean, it's not like those mushrooms don't have vitamin D and B vitamins and and selenium and all the rest of that. And so so they really are ways to get mushrooms in different in different products. So I don't want to downgrade that, or say anything that's not good, because they may very well be, just great. And I have some of that product here. People who see it always think that it's, it's great, but who knows if they're, again, like I said, the functional aspects from your standpoint, and then Rob brought up anything that might be safety related and, and a little bit different. So don't know from that standpoint.
Wonderful. Great answer. Great insight. Good things to think about. And thank you all, everyone on the call, for joining us today. We hope that you found this really useful. We're really excited to see your recipe submissions, and we will definitely post a recording of this call to our webinar library on sportsrd.org. Thank you all so much, and have a great day.
Thank you.